anything I know about humanity is that they have a hard time connecting the dots. Fix my hair there. For whatever reason, people just can't seem to put things together. And I don't know how to teach them to do that. There's an instinctive skill that comes in being an INTJ personality type, if you will. I don't read too much into the Myers-Briggs thing. People can change their personalities if they work real hard at it. But there is an importance to being able to put the pieces together that really makes it difficult to understand. Hey, Angie, makes it really difficult to establish for people a timeline of how things have unfolded in this country and to see who's really at fault. It's really difficult to explain to people that can't see it for some reason. And I don't know why. I don't know why they can't see it, but I'm going to try. Your government is corrupt. And it didn't just start getting corrupt. It's been corrupt a really long time. And they have an MO that they seem to follow and have been following for a couple hundred years now. Okay. And it's been more and more progressively corrupt, but it's the same entities gaining more and more control, committing theft, dealing in pedophilia, and using the theft to fund their wars, to change the world into the image that they prefer to have. Some people say, well, that's the Illuminati. No, it's not the Illuminati either, okay? The Illuminati is part of the distraction. It's part of the disinformation campaign. There is no Illuminati. They don't exist, okay? Yeah, there was a group back in 1776. They called themselves the Illuminati, but there's no actual Illuminati, okay? The Illuminati means people who are smarter than you. You know, Hugh Squire helped me understand this better, because this everybody wants to find an easy scapegoat without pointing any fingers directly on any specific person, not be able to say this is the entity that I know did this for a fact, and blame it on something very vague, because it's easy. It's so easy just to cry out Freemasons and Illuminati, because then you don't have to connect any real pieces. You know, you can just see a symbol and go, oh, I see it, Illuminati. And I was doing that for a while, okay, as I was learning new things. That does mean you've connected some dots. At least you're seeing the patterns of seeing symbolism here and there spread throughout, so it makes sense. But they don't connect the way you think they do, because there is no actual entity called the Illuminati. Okay, they don't all be together and declare themselves, oh, you're a member of the Illuminati, you're a member of the Illuminati. Let's all plan to conquer the world. Oh, you're a Freemason, so you're automatically part of the Illuminati. No, it does not work like that. Your average Freemason doesn't have a clue about any of this and can't connect the dots better than any other of the 99.9% of the population out there. People can't connect the dots, and the Freemasons are no different. Just because they go meet in a building at the top of the hill down here in downtown doesn't make it where they can suddenly comprehend what's really going on. They're just your average people that live in the same neighborhood as you. And you know, they have their own reasons for being in it. They think they're probably, you know, looking for jobs and people to help them get jobs for the most part. I think that's what the main reason they're there. But they're not smart. Okay, they're not particularly smart. Hey, Pete, they're no smarter than you are, and they're not connecting the dots any better than you and I are. In fact, I tested them. I went up there and I interviewed with them a little bit to see if maybe I wanted to join the Freemasons. Hey, John. And my discovery was, I gave them a little test. Okay, I saw some pictures of presidents they had on the wall, and there were some obvious patterns that led to 9/11. Okay, in these patterns, I wanted to see if they could connect the dots. I kind of, without them understanding what I was doing, I just asked them some basic questions about, you know, how does this relate, and how does this pattern, what does this mean anything to you? Does these numbers on these plaques on your wall, what does this mean to you? Does it, you know, and they couldn't connect it, they couldn't see it. And then you hear people talking among themselves, and you know what? They got the programmed response. Does anybody know what the programmed response is? Anytime that you connect the dots for somebody, what does society automatically put into somebody's head to just automatically declare anytime you can connect the dots that they can't connect? What do they say? Does anybody know? Oh, it's the C word. Yeah, conspiracy. Oh, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. their program that shows that the Freemasons are no, and this is at the lodge right down the street, a half mile from me. They can't connect the dots any better than any else of the 99% of the population out there. Yeah, they worship a false light. Yeah, they've got some odd ideas and crap like that. I get it, Pete. But the point I'm establishing here is that they really can't see who's doing what in this country, because they can't connect the dots any better than anybody else. So how do you get people to connect the dots? I don't know. Okay, let me try to connect a few dots for you in American history, so you can see just how corrupt our government is, and see how the MO has been flowing for 100 years or more. I mean, just go back to like World War I, okay, and look at in fact, you could go back further. You could go back to the Spanish-American War and talk about how the sinking of the USS Maine in Cuba helped, was obviously sunk by our people. The Spaniards even helped rescue our sailors, okay? And then we go, oh, they sunk our ship and started war. Okay. And that sinking of a ship is always accompanied every single one of our wars in this country. Okay, I mean the Huntley and the Civil War, the USS Maine, and then in World War I you had the sinking first. Okay, you had the sinking first of the Titanic. Well, why is that? Why is that important? Well, did you ever realize that the sinking of the Titanic, all those billionaires that didn't want the income tax went down on the ship, while J.P. Morgan, who was scheduled to be on the ship, he turns around and gets off at the last minute. And then the next year, you get an income tax. And you've been suffering from it ever since. Yeah, the lower level Masons are pawns. Pete, I think the upper level Masons don't know any better. There are some people that, like I was saying right before you got on here, there's no actual Illuminati. Okay, so there's no real group of people called the Illuminati. There may be people in high positions that are also Freemasons, but they're literally not meeting together, trying to use Freemasonry to conquer the world in and of itself. That's just not how it is. There may be smart people who are also Masons, but the real Masons that started our country had some pretty good principles in mind. Okay, so they may had some weird religious principles or whatever, but by and large, they had our best interest at heart. And that was, all of our main founding fathers. Now, back in World War I, back where we're going, okay, we're talking about the Titanic, and the next year you get the income tax. Okay, that's 1912 and 1913. Okay, now just a few years later, you got another ship they're like, hey, that worked out really good. We sunk a ship and we got an income tax. Let's sink another one and see if we can get ourselves into World War II. Down goes the Lusitania. Always these big wars, they're started by first sinking of a ship. Okay, so here it goes. Okay, we got our Civil War. We got our Spanish-American War by sinking ships, and remember the Maine, remember the Lusitania. We get into World War I, and okay, we just had this new income tax passed right before we started the war, echoing another ship attack. And then what happens is all of our guys go off to war, all of our doughboys go off to war, and our own government taxes their property while they're gone, and they're off to war. They can't pay for it. So these guys come back, or many of them don't come back, and the government robs hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. And and I know the money was not what it is today, but the amount of money was equivalent. Okay, and they were still in billions of dollars worth in today's money of property from the U.S. citizen. And that's what your government did to you, taking properties for the widows after sending them off to war. Do you understand how corrupt and wicked that is? Your government planned that on purpose, sent them to war so that they could commit theft against the American people. That's what your U.S. government did. And you think that those people suddenly stopped doing that? That was in 1917 when World War I started. It didn't get better. Okay. Now, what happened next? Okay, you got World War II. And, okay, it wasn't just one ship. They sunk the whole freaking bunch of ships over at Pearl Harbor. Okay, a naval attack. They knew it was coming. They let it happen, and they planned it. A whole bunch of ships sank. Oh, remember Pearl Harbor? We got to go fight World War II now. And what did that do? That set up your modern state of Israel right after 1948, just 4 years after the end of World War II. You get the state of Israel, and you get that entire con and all the banking industry that supports it, and that's led up to what we had today. You had to have the income tax before that. You see a plan developing here? You see bankers putting this stuff together? Yeah. They've been doing this for a long time. That's how corrupt your government is, okay? And it's all about theft. It's all about getting your money and taken from you. Truth be known, there's a lot of people who think that your government wants to kill you. It's not really, no. They want to steal from you. Okay, that's as he would, to use Hugh's term, which he gave me permission to use. Okay, so as far as I know, I'm the only person that's allowed to use it. Okay, so don't use his word, because he literally invented the word bottom line. But the bottom line is that your government is about theft. Period. It's about stealing as much as they can for themselves. They're not about killing you. They're not really trying to kill you, because if they kill you, they can't get anything from you. You understand? The whole point of what your government has been up to, all these endless wars, is simply to steal from you. Now, a lot of people can't connect all these dots. Hey, how you doing, Adrian and Melissa? Good to see y'all. Haven't heard from Melissa in a while. Glad you're on. Adrian, haven't heard from you in a while. Glad you're on. But we are connecting the dots for the last 150 years, 170 years of American history. They have the same MO. They have the same patterns that they just keep doing over and over and again, and we just keep falling for it. Almost every time they sink a ship. You always know something's going to happen. You say, wait a minute, well, what about Vietnam? Yeah, well, what was it? Was the Gulf of Tonkin? Was that where they sunk the ship? I think it was. Yeah, well, they might, but if they're making us feel like crap, my point is, Melissa, is the reason that they're making us feel like crap isn't to kill us, because if they kill us, they can't make any money for us. Just because some mob or mafia group, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example of this, okay? Hugh only drinks a certain coffee, because he knows who the mafia gangs are that are controlling the other groups of coffee. And he said, listen, the coffee that you're drinking is making you feel sick, isn't it? I said, yeah, it hurts my stomach. He said, well, they're all like that except for one. He says, there's only one that gives you pure coffee grounds that isn't polluted by wrong chemicals and mud and crap like that. He said, go to Walmart and get the Great Value coffee. He says, because that one right now isn't controlled by the mob. And I went and I got it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it does taste cleaner. And it didn't hurt my stomach. Okay, I'm telling you, everything Hugh tells you is 100% true. Some of it's over your head, okay? Just because, like I'm saying right now, most people don't know how to connect the dots. But try that. Try the Great Value coffee. It's easy on the stomach. It wakes you right up. And you can tell it's because it's not controlled by a mafia. Well, your whole country is about making this money. So if they're poisoning you in any way, Melissa, what they're doing is they're trying to get a deal on something, and it's not because they're trying to kill you per se. It's that they have found some way to give you a cheaper crap product and make more money doing it. And that's really what's going on. And your whole government is like that, full of these evil people that are only in it for themselves. That's what Rand Paul is. who's completely in with the Russian mafia. I've showed that before. And his buddy Sean Davis from Australia, who works for the Russian television, RT. Okay, that's what he's all about. They're all in it for the money. This whole Ukraine thing, when you connect the dots, it makes so much sense. But nobody can connect the dots, okay? Nobody can connect the dots. I'll get into that more here in a minute, because I still want to go through the wars, okay? So, you had Vietnam, Gulf of Tonkin, sunken ships there. There was even one in Korea, but I honestly can't remember. I can't remember what it was. Then you go up into the Gulf War. Who remembers what the sinking ship was there? And it didn't actually sink. but it was blown up. Well, my brother was on it. It was the USS Cole, and he can't connect these dots any better than the average Freemason can down here at the lodge, okay? And I don't know why. How can you be on it and not be able to connect these dots? I don't know, okay? Because if you really trust the guy, the pilot of the ship or whatever, the captain of the ship, then you really, you're just trusting, okay? But you got to look bigger, okay? You got to look bigger and see that what's going on is a lot higher than just the captain of the ship. Maybe the captain of the ship's a good person. Maybe he's in on it. I don't know. I do believe that the captain of the Titanic was in on it. An obvious, he was a Rosicrucian, I think, you know. He seems to have been totally in on sinking that ship, okay? There was a fire on that ship before it left, by the way. But now, anyway, back to the USS Cole. Get out of the Titanic here for a minute. Now, the USS Cole was bombed exactly in sync with 9/11, and there was I wish I had my notes here, but it was something like, I don't know, the number of weeks matched 9/11 or something like that. I'd have to go back into it, but it was perfectly matched with 9/11. So there was the sinking of your ship for another attack that was coming. So what was 9/11 actually about? And this is what my whole channel is becoming about, because once I understood Hugh, and Hugh was telling me about all these things that he's gone through and his whole life story and helping me put the pieces together, because he's actually lived it. He's not a theory, okay? He's not a conspiracy theory. He's not connecting dots out of his head somewhere or things that he had to put together. He's actually lived through all this stuff, okay? He can tell you exactly why 9/11 happened, because it's literally about him. I mean, there's no theory there. There's no conspiracy theory in somebody who lived it, okay? What happened on 9/11 was that Hugh's, the theft, just like in World War I, where they stole all of our property from people that they sent to war, which funded the government forever after that, and a whole lot of rich people. Well, the same thing happened in World War II. They established Israel, and the whole banking and the Swiss banks came into play really strong right then. Well, right then, now we have another big theft that happened, the theft of Bottom Line, that Hugh Squire invented, the guy you hear, okay? Hundreds of billions of dollars worth of contracts, and your government wanted that money, and they stole it. They stole it, and they established all kinds of other businesses using that trademark, took everything, and then they covered it up by destroying the World Trade Center, where all of those international receipts and businesses receipts were. And then where Hugh had a civil rights case in the Pentagon, they shot a missile right at the bottom of that. If you think that's an airplane, you really got issues. I mean, all you have to do is see it didn't knock out the poles in front of the Pentagon. You know, wings would have knocked out the light poles right in front of it, and it flew right next to the ground. Because you notice it hit the bottom of the Pentagon, didn't hit the top. An airplane was flying right low level with the ground, parallel to the ground. That's literally physically impossible because of the aerodynamics will knock it out of the sky. Okay, the 17 code with the Cole. Yeah, Pete, I made a great video of that, by the way. Yeah, you're probably referring to it. Yeah, oh yeah, Pete, yeah, the fires in Australia, man, that's what they're doing. They're destroying things because it's about money. You know, and this was no different. They stole hundreds of billions of dollars from Hugh Squire, okay, and from Bottom Line, or from the theft of Bottom Line. And 9/11 was all about covering it up and destroying the civil rights case, so there was no chance of him ever getting it back. And all of this is theft, and that's what the government is now trading this money around. All these rich entities and rich businesses and multi-billion-dollar companies are trading that money around right now. And when that money finally dwindles, they'll do something like that again. Okay, with the amount of inflation going on, I wouldn't be surprised if we're due. Hugh says we're probably due, and he wouldn't be shocked if they killed, and no, he's not calling for it, but he wouldn't be shocked if they killed the current president and staged another 9/11 type event of some sort to commit more theft. Because that's what your government's been doing for the last 150 years, but nobody can seem to connect the dots. You know, it's really not that hard. Let's go back to the Ukrainian situation, okay? The government taxes us, sends our money to the Ukraine. when Trump says he's going to withhold the money, all of a sudden they have to impeach him. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, we got to divert from that real fast. Okay. Well, think about Ukraine here for a minute. What's really going on? Our politicians are over there taking bribes, taking what the better term is payola that Hugh uses, payola and graft. Look up the definitions: GRAFT, PAYOLA. Graft and payola. They go over there and they're being paid off by using the Russian mafia to go in and find that tax money. And sometimes they join businesses. I mean, look at Joe Biden's son, okay, who's over there right now, gets $1.5 billion from China. The next thing you know, China is no longer a currency manipulator, and they got this amazing trade deal. Oh, that's worth $1.5 billion to the Chinese. Oh, times a billion, times a trillion. And all it cost him was $1.5 billion. Nothing. That's nothing. Okay, but then he's part of some gas company, and he's collecting $50,000 a month in salary from them. It was zero experience. What a con! All this Ukrainian mafia is over there helping our politicians get our tax money and other companies' tax money and payola and graft from all the deals they're doing, and they're putting it in their pockets. And where are they hiding it? Oh, Swiss banks, where they set up in World War II. Do you see the con yet? Even Hitler wouldn't bomb Switzerland. This is easy to see if you can connect the dots, but nobody can. Nobody can. It's like we live in a whole universe of complete blind zombies or something. They just walk around and bump into things. Brains. We don't have any. We need brains. And they just bump into everything. I feel like that's the reality of the world we live in. Nobody can connect these obvious things. But Hugh can connect them because he's lived half of it, okay? If you can't connect the dots, just listen to somebody that lived it. At least be smart enough to go, I can listen to somebody that's been there and been through it. You have the unprecedented access right now to the man who is at the center of the biggest modern con right now of 9/11 and the Kennedy assassination. And it's all about things very closely related to his life and covering up what they did to him. You really need to start putting those pieces together and access this amazing opportunity that you have. He's not going to be around much longer. He's really suffering. He's really hurting. Get that information and learn it like crazy. Ask sensible questions and don't be rude to them. Ask them sensible questions and learn the truth of what happened to your country. This is amazing. Can you imagine if back in World War II we could have had somebody that was in the middle of the government con on all that and could explain to us what all was going on and why, or somebody that knew that your own government sunk the USS Maine back in, when was it, 1898 or something like that. I mean, but we have this. We have somebody right now whose business his lawsuit was blown up in that room in the Pentagon where that freaking missile hit at ground level, not a plane. What happened to the passengers on the plane? Yeah, well, the CIA freaking landed them somewhere and shot them all. Maybe they were on the plane, but they were already dead. I can tell you that. But the plane didn't hit the Pentagon. I don't know. They landed it and they shot them all. I don't know what they did with the plane after that. I mean, you add up all the numbers. Go look at Jonathan Basie, and you can just add up all the flight numbers, and you can see how it all relates to secret math. It's a con, okay? It's obvious. That plane did not hit the Pentagon. Yeah, I do believe that 2 planes hit the World Trade Centers, but I think the people on them were probably already dead. Probably unloaded somewhere, and probably shot. Maybe they were shot in flight. I don't know that to be 100% fact. But probably they were unloaded and shot, and then the planes were probably flew into the World Trade Centers. Probably. That's my theory. Can't prove it. But there was no plane that hit the Pentagon. And what are the chances that that other plane in the field in Pennsylvania would land in the same spot, crash in the same spot, if it even really crashed, or if it might have been a bomb or something, but marked the exact same spot where they threw Hughes' twin back in 1957 dead. What are the chances of that? Do you realize what opportunity you're missing not to interview this guy, not to get all the information that you can from this guy? I mean, you got to be really, sorry, pardon me, you got to be really stupid to really pass up this opportunity. If you can't connect these dots, I'm sorry. I don't know how to help you. But you're part of the whole rest of the world that can't connect the dots either. Even the Freemasons can't connect the dots. Okay, I talked to them. They can't. They're just as dumb as everybody else in the world. And I don't know why. But, you know, anybody thinks that the Freemasons are running the world, you know, wow, you know, just go talk to them. That's all I can say. Just go talk to them. You'll see they're just as dumb as everybody else. I don't mean they're more dumb or anything like that, or they're just that. There's normal people, and they don't have a clue either. They really don't. They're not running your world. There may be a few of them who are also Freemasons who are doing something, but as a whole, the organization of Freemasonry isn't doing jack. Okay, they had nothing to do with this. The real Freemasons that started our country were good people with our best intentions at heart. And this country was started by and large by good people who wanted to kick the queen out of the king. I'm sorry, at the time I'm thinking modern. Kick the king out of our country. Okay, so that you could be free and have a right to defend yourself. Those constitutional rights are unprecedented in history. It's high time that people realize that and understand that. The people who started our country had our best interest at heart. You are no longer free because that same dang queen and that same royal system has infiltrated our country in 100 million different ways through pedophilia, through the Swiss banks, through massive amounts of bribe and payola, and through the queer, gay, pedophile political apparatus. An average of 2 senators, state senators in every state, and representatives by the numbers, okay, are right now under investigation. An average of 2, either representatives like state assemblymen or state senators, are under investigation right now, either for being rapists or pedophiles. Think about that. Over 100 across the country. For Trump dying, I think Freemasonry is just the stepping stool or the broken ladder. Yeah, I don't, honestly, Pete, I don't think the Freemasons are anything, honestly. I mean, at a local level, they kind of are. You know, if your judge is a Freemason and the lawyer's a Freemason, you might have a hard time getting your, and you're not, you might have a hard time being proven innocent in a court because they might band together. There's a lot of that kind of crap going on. Okay, but that's not the big con, the big overall society con. So now let's go into this Rodin murder again. I've talked about so many times, which has so much to do with Ukraine. You know, if you think about the name Ukraine, which used to be part of the Soviet Union before the fall of Russia or the Soviet Union, now it's a separate country. Well, Ukraine, uranium, they almost sound the same. There's a reason for that. Ukrainium, you know. Ukraine is where they process uranium. Okay, it's where they enrich uranium for the Soviet Union, and that's why Putin wants it back so bad. Okay, so Putin's hand is going to be in this pot every step of the way with this payola and graft. Okay, because if he can't get it out right, you can dead sure that this multi-billionaire, filthy rich dictator is going to have his hands in this pot, and you better appease Putin. Okay, when you're dealing down there and getting all this tax money back from the American taxpayer that's being sent there to be soaked up by our own politicians, so the whole world can filter money and pay off our politicians. Now, Ukraine is where they enrich uranium, and it's where a lot of uranium is stored today. And they still have, I believe they're still active, the uranium enrichment facilities. Okay. Now, Piketon County, Ohio is known for what? It's where all my relatives worked. My grandpa worked there 40 years or whatever and retired there. I have an uncle who still works there. My dad worked there his whole life till he retired. That's where they enrich uranium in the United States. It's one of 3 facilities, I believe. There's one in Paducah, Kentucky, and another in California. So you can't have a governor like Ohio Governor Kasich from a state that's in the middle of this big Ukraine operation right now, because that's just a little bit too close, because Kasich is a halfway decent guy, and he didn't have his hands in the pot. So there's no way we're going to get an outsider to go and be president of the United States. So guess what they did? Trump and the Clintons and everyone else running for president in 2016, okay, they said, listen, we got to get rid of this guy. We can't have a guy from a state that's enriching uranium. You understand what's going on here? So let's send a real clear signal. Of course, you have the Russian mafia, Ukrainian mafia maybe, and they help facilitate what needs to be done. This is what Trump's apparatus is all about. It's depending on these mafia types that go and they commit murders for him. Okay, I think Trump was primarily the person responsible for the Rodin murders in Ohio to get Kasich out of the race. Though I'm sure that all the Democrats nodded their heads and said, yeah, that was a good idea, Mr. Trump. We're with you on that. By the way, we need another $500 million added to our Swiss bank account. Oh, sure, no problem. Now, so with those connections, the Russian mafia gets into our country, and they send a very clear signal to Governor Kasich right there, right next door to the uranium enrichment facility in Piketon County, Ohio, and they kill 8 people, the Rodin family, in 4 different locations, okay? Two people in each location to the back of the head, nails them down and murders them in the back of the head, real close to the uranium enrichment facility. Well, that's a pretty clear message, and it's really obvious that Governor Kasich got that message, because a week later, guess what? He was out of the race. And you ever notice how Governor Kasich really doesn't like Trump to this day? Gee, I wonder why. He got the message, because the next step would have been, oh, well, this is the warning, Mr. Kasich. You don't want this to happen to you, do you? That was the message being sent. Do you get it? Can you connect the dots, people? Because their hands are in the cookie jar, and that's what's going on. The cookie jar, the big Ukrainian cookie jar. All that money being filtered into Swiss bank accounts, and Switzerland's at the middle of the worldwide con right now. Hitler himself would not bomb Switzerland. Think about that for a second. Now, you can apply this to your local level. Look at what's going on in your town. You can start making connections, start connecting the dots of what kind of things are going on. It's all about money. It's all about theft. And it's all about just themselves. It's not a worldwide conspiracy to kill you, but I can look right there in our the courthouse of our county in Marietta, Ohio, and I can look up the guy who's assessing the property values. And by the way, unbelievably true, his name is Living Good. I'm not making this up. And if you go to his Facebook page, his last name is Living Good. All he does is show you how good he's living at our dime. Okay, his worldwide cruises, all just pages and pages. Just, you know, he'll get wind of this. He'll probably erase it all now. Somebody will show this to him. Look at this guy on Facebook talking about you being so corrupt. All you have to do is look and see that he's living good on my dime, making no joke, $79,000 a year to assess my property of a guy who's making frickin' minimum wage so that he can go on frickin' cruises all around the world and make $79,000 a year. Oh, and property taxes. He's assessing property. Well, where do those property taxes go? They go to fund your frickin' schools. And so I go and I look at my school and I see the superintendent of this poor school district where my kids go, where literally the pieces of the gym are falling apart. Okay, they have no air conditioning. Their buildings literally were built in, I think it was 1904. Okay, they're old, they're falling apart, they're nasty, they have no air conditioning, and they're paying the superintendent, the guy who's assessing my property taxes, who's making $79,000 a year, is paying the superintendent of the school just under $100,000 a year. The average salary around here is around $40,000, probably a little less around this part. So the guy takes my money, gives himself triple what I make, double what most people make, to pay another guy who's making 5, 6, 7 times what I make. And they'll point a gun at my head and take it from me if I don't pay. Do you understand? You're not free in this country. There is no such thing as freedom. It's all about theft. It's all about graft and payola. Your government has been doing this. And I wrote a letter to not the assessor, but the tax collector herself. I could not find her salary. I suspect it's too high, but I can't prove it because I can't find it. They hid her salary and the mayor's salary really good. I checked the state website. I can't find it. Maybe it's somewhere. But I wrote her a nasty little email. Don't you feel bad for all the little widow ladies that you put out of their homes because they paid 30 years for their property, and now you're going to assess their tax when they can no longer, and make them pay a property tax when they can no longer work? How do you sleep at night? That's what I told her. And it's high time all you guys did the same thing. Let's quit being walked all over by these people. Let's start showing them, you have a right to property. And this issue really ticks me off, okay? It burns me up like nothing else. It is highly necessary that we start standing up for our right to property. I stood at the city council here last month, and I told him that. And I said, our Constitution was founded to say life, liberty, and property, but instead George Mason wanted it to be life, liberty, and property. But Thomas Jefferson stepped in and said, no, if you do that, then all the slaves will be considered property and will never end slavery. So they changed it to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But you have a self-evident God-given right to life and property, and it's time to amend the Constitution to make it very clear that we have a right to property. The government can't take it. In the state of West Virginia, you don't even have a right to own a car. You will pay a property tax on your car till the day you die, even if you paid for it 30 years ago. Can you imagine that? My second car is a 1988. I just got it for $800. I had to borrow $600 of it. Okay, but I have to pay the government if I lived in West Virginia. I'm on the Ohio side. But if I lived on the West Virginia side, I'd have to pay a property tax on that car for the rest of my life. How corrupt, how stinking sick is that? While they're paying the guy taking the money $79,000 a year and giving it to another guy and paying him $100,000 a year. I'm sure it's no better on the West Virginia side than it is over here. Can't even imagine what the mayor's salary is. Actually, I think I did find the mayor's salary. Now I think about it. I couldn't find the tax collector woman. The mayor's salary was something close to $100,000 too, if I remember correctly. Unfreaking believable what they're doing. But we can't connect the dots. We can't understand any of this. Okay, so we see down in Parkersburg, right across the street. You have to understand, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I live right on the river. I walk outside my house and I can see Parkersburg because I live right by the bridge. Okay, so it's literally just a half mile from me. I work on the West Virginia side of on the Ohio side. Okay, so in West Virginia, they are battling in the city hall over and over again. This organization that is going throughout the entire state over and over, harassing everybody, trying to allow men into women's restrooms under the guise of we want fair rights for housing. And then I challenged them the last time they had this meeting and said, where is their freaking money coming from? Who is doing this? Now let's connect some dots, shall we? Because it's all about connecting the dots. Let's look at the big organizations who are founding these gay groups. these transgender groups, all about transgenders now, 0.01% of the population, and everything has to bow to them. Well, okay, there's big organizations primarily funding them. The Levi Strauss Foundation, which is based where? Oh, in San Francisco. Oh, and who was Levi Strauss? He was from Bavaria, a province in Germany. Close to Hitler. Isn't that interesting? The Open Society Foundation, who runs that? George Soros, an Austrian. A very wealthy billionaire. The Tides Foundation, which is based where? San Francisco. Every year they spend 200, according to the website, they spend 223 million for quote unquote social change. The Funds for Global Human Rights, the Arcus Foundation, ARCUS, and the Ford Foundation, who recently combined with the Astria, I don't know how you say it, ASTRAEA Lesbian Foundation, and the Arcus Foundation, which just gave $780,000 in grants in southeastern United States, focused on education, organization, and advocacy. And it's about social change for lesbians and queers is what it's all about. And Bloomberg, the Bloomberg Foundation, the most freaking queer-friendly, sodomite, transgender, pedophile network on the face of the earth, run by none other than a Knight of the Queen. What is a Knight of the Queen doing running for president of the United States? I thought we kicked those people out 200 years ago. It's time we do it again. Bringing in their pedophile agenda. If you can't see a connection to the pedophile agenda and the throne of England, I can't help you. Why? The Queen has been doing this to us for a long time. All brings in Ozzy Osbourne. Okay, Osbourne was one of the families that abducted, kidnapped, and raped Hugh. Think about that for a minute. Ozzy Osbourne, they still run the radio station in Detroit to this day. And actually the owner is, guess who? Graham, Senator Graham runs that radio station. Oh, you think he's just this nice conservative Republican, don't you? Yeah, full of crap is what he is. He's got his hand in the cookie jar in the Ukraine as well. Bringing in while pretending to be this nice conservative, family-friendly Republican. And guess what? He's helping bring in the transgender issue into the United States and the pedophile networks that go with it. And I guarantee you he's one of them. Can't prove it directly. How can I? I mean, I need an investigation team, don't I? But, can you connect the dots? So back to Bloomberg. What does Bloomberg, according to his own website, participate in? International Transgender Day, New York AIDS Walk, Open Finance Forum, Pride Marches, International Day Against, this is all on his website, International Day Against Homophobia, Glad Spirit Day, GLAAD, is another homosexual organization I don't know much about, World AIDS Day. And Bloomberg signed the amicus brief in the North Carolina case that where the governor was trying to keep men out of the women's restrooms. Isn't that interesting? Oh, and he brags about it. And he's running for president. The Knight of the Queen, who's bringing in your pedophilia networks openly and boldly with their transgender agenda. And no, transgenders are not decent, loving people by and large who are just confused. No, they're freaking sick in the head. They'll slit your throat. Those are the kind of people that over in Michigan here recently hung a guy upside down and ate his testicles in front of him before they killed him. That's your transgender agenda. Do you understand? Oh, and that same guy sent Hugh Squires a letter the day before. They said, hey, I think you'll be interested in this, Hugh, and wrote Sir Francis Bacon, and the guy they killed the next day, whose name was Bacon, and right there in Detroit, right in the area where Hugh grew up, right there in Detroit. But you can't connect the dots, so you think he's making it up. Because you can't connect any of the dots that I just said, most of it. Now, I don't know why. They're clear, they're so obvious. He's in the middle of everything, and you are missing unprecedented opportunity in the history of this country to learn, and before he dies, you better get your acting gear. He is a sick man. He has cancer all over, and I tell, listen, he says, I'm about ready to just throw in a towel. I said, don't you dare. The country needs you. You have unprecedented access right now to get that information and to teach future generations the truth of JFK, the truth of 9/11, the truth of these homosexual pedophile agendas and who's running them and what they're really all about. Connect the dots, please. Try harder. Work longer at it. Thanks for watching. I got to get ready to go to work. Now, if you're watching on Bow and Arrow on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe.